Yo, what's going on, guys? It's gmeiners here, and for a while, linear fusion rifles have been the hard meta for DPS. We got a few linears this season, and there tends to be a metric ton of misinformation on which linear fusion rifle is the best, so in this video, I'm doing a completely unbiased DPS test. I went through and tested Cataclysmic, Storm Chaser, Reed's Regret, and then brand new to this season, both Taipan and then Sales by Pitch Glass. I didn't test Tarantula or Threaded Needle because these aren't really able to compete with their counterparts, especially in a team setting. We are going to be taking a look at how hard each one of these hits at base with no damage perks applied, then scaling these values up with the damage perks, calculating the total damage output they have, including perks like triple tap and 4th times the charm, which increase ammo economy. We're going to be looking at the DPS they deal over time, and then lastly, comparing which options are going to be the easiest to use in different settings where you might be using Font of Might and different team comps. If this video does help you out, make sure to drop a like and sub down below as it helps the channel out a ton as well. And let's get into it. Okay, so starting off with just base damage, I went and tested every single linear in this lost sector against the boss to keep things super consistent, and every single weapon had boss spec on, and the only inconsistencies were going to be from changes in impact depending on the battery perks I had on each roll, which is like a 1 to 2% difference max, so nothing major. And most importantly, these were all either 1580 or 1579 power, so they were all super even, and that one power difference is going to have way less of an effect on our testing than even the battery perks. That being said, Cataclysmic ended up hitting for 56,586. Taipan hit for 58,356, and the only reason that is slightly higher, as I mentioned, is because of a slight boost in impact. Reed's hit for 57,189. Sales by Pitch Glass hit for 58,356 damage, which is exactly the same as Taipan. And then lastly, Storm Chaser hit for 28,258, but keep in mind that is times 3, so really per shot it deals 84,774, which is actually a huge difference. Now, if we take that and look at the reserves value for each linear fusion rifle, and keep in mind this is without double reserves on our chest piece, then the total damage output of the weapons are as follows. For Cataclysmic, we're going to get 20 shots, so without any perks applied, this is just going to be 1.13 million total damage. Taipan is going to have 22 shots, so slightly more, which brings it to 1.28 million. Reed has 20, so that's 1.14 mil. Sales Spy has 20 as well, which comes to 1.17 million. And then lastly, Storm Chaser has 19, which is the lowest, but its total damage output actually comes to 1.61 million if you manage to hit every single crit. Now, as most people are aware, perks like triple tap and 4th times the charm drastically improve ammo economy, making weapons better in terms of total damage output that have these in their perk pool. Cataclysmic has 4th times the charm, and then Taipan and Reed's both have triple tap. So recalculating these, Cataclysmic will now be able to have 32 shots in total, assuming you still have a base of 20. Every mag of 6 is going to be able to return 2 shots twice, making it 10 shots per reload, and then you will have 2 additional to spare. So that brings Cataclysmic up to 1.81 million in total, which is a brand new high. Taipan's 22 will go to 29 shots, which is 1.69 million, and then Reed's 20 shots will go up to 26, which is 1.49 mil. Lastly, if you incorporate all of the largest damage perks for each weapon, then this damage will once again go even higher. Cataclysmic gets a 35% buff from the perk bait and switch, but this typically won't count for the first shot in each mag. Sales Spy with Clown Cartridge will technically have its highest damage on Focus Fury, which is a 20% buff, and then everything else has access to Firing Line, which is also a 20% weapon buff. With Cataclysmic having 32 shots, that's going to be 4 times you technically need to reload to get all of them off. So I think it's realistic to expect bait and switch to be procced 4 times, which means that 4 shots will hit for normal damage and everything else will receive the 35% buff. So Cataclysmic will now go up to 2.37 million total damage. Sales Spy, on the other hand, with Focus Fury and a base mag size of 6, means you will proc the damage buff after 3 precision shots, and this will reset on reload. The damage output will heavily depend on the extra rounds each mag gets from Clown Cartridge, but assuming the best case scenario, that would be a mag size of 9 rounds. The first 3 shots would hit for base damage, and then 6 for a 20% increase. So this would end up coming out to 1.31 million damage in total. And then everything else will just get a flat 20% damage boost for every shot fired. So Taipan jumps up to 2.03 mil, Reeds to 1.79, and then Storm Chaser to 1.93. So just looking at the total damage output and nothing else, under the best circumstances, Cataclysmic is going to be the best, followed by Taipan, then Storm Chaser, then Reeds, then there's kind of 50 feet of dirt, and that's where Sail Spy sits. When it comes to DPS, on the other hand, I went through and timed how long it took to shoot off 2 mags with each weapon. I simulated 4 times and triple tap being added as well. And for Storm Chaser, I didn't have a clown cartridge roll, so that DPS might fall slightly behind, but not by too much. Starting with Cataclysmic, 2 mags is going to be 20 shots, which is going to come out to a total damage value of 1.49 million. And this took pretty long at around almost 21 seconds. So our DPS came to 71.9 thousand damage per second. 2 mags of Taipan is going to be 16 shots. So this is going to be 1.12 million, assuming that firing line is also procced. And that is going to take 17.18 seconds, which comes to 65.2 thousand DPS. Reeds is the exact same amount of shots, however, it surprisingly fires faster than Taipan, even though they are just reskins of the exact same weapon and have the exact same charge rate. Not sure how this works, but for 16 shots, Reeds hit for 1.1 million, and this took around 16.38 seconds, so the DPS is actually higher with Reeds at 67,000 damage per second. 2 mags of Storm Chaser without Clown Cartridge is just 10 shots, so that's going to be 1.02 million damage, and that only took 14.78 seconds, which is going to be 68.8 thousand damage per second, which would arguably go even higher if we did have some extra shots before throwing in a reload. Sail Spy, on the other hand, fired 16 shots in 2 mags. This would have been 1.05 million damage with Focused Fury proccing, and this took 17.28 seconds, which is going to be 60.7 thousand damage per second, which honestly isn't that bad. Overall, this total damage just lacks compared to other weapons with triple tap. Lastly, the very final thing that you should honestly consider is going to be proccing the perk Font of Might with each linear fusion rifle, which is a 25% boost in damage. Yes, this can be done with everything. However, there's kind of a hierarchy on how difficult Font is to proc on each weapon archetype. Stasis is by far the easiest to proc, especially in the current meta. A Warlock can just drop Well of Radiance with Supreme Wellmaker, and everyone running Stasis and Reed's Regret can instantly have Font of Might procced. Arc is going to be the next easiest in my opinion, because all you need to do is technically kill an ad and the mod Overcharge Wellmaker, which makes 2 Arc Wells on a finisher kill. After this, technically Reaping is probably the easiest way to make a Void Elemental Well, as it only requires your class ability, which tends to be the quickest cooldown for all classes, and then you just need to get a kill, nothing special here. And then after that, Melee Wellmaker, Elemental Ordnance, or even Explosive Wellmaker all work for Solar Elemental Wells. Melee Wellmaker tends to be the most popular, which requires at least a melee ability to be up, and then that melee to get a kill for the well to spawn in. Now, I don't think any of these ways to make wells are going to be extremely hard to do. However, all of them will require ads to be alive during or right before a damage phase for Font to be procced, which makes Supreme Wellmaker and Stasis leaps and bounds easier than running this on anything else, especially in endgame content. Reeds with Font of Might is a 25% boost, so the total damage output goes to 2.24 million, which is right under Cataclysmic, and for DPS, this jumps all the way up to 83.8k, which is by far the highest. I also think that it's very important to consider in situations where you are moving during a boss fight or just have difficulty proccing bait and switch, which is actually pretty common, then Cataclysmic falls off hard, which would again make Reeds and Taipan much more favorable. And then Storm Chaser, on the other hand, I think does seem great on paper, but without div, I think that it becomes very hard to hit ideal damage phases. So with that said, in my opinion, in a team setting, I think that Reeds is going to be the best and easiest weapon to use while incorporating Font of Might. With DPS being high, if you do have enough ammo drops, this would be the best way to also maximize damage across multiple phases. And although it was technically not something that I could incorporate in testing, the Vice Stinger perk is also able to bypass reloads, which means higher DPS per damage phase. And once again, if you do have the ammo drops through something like Aeons, then the total damage output gets even higher. For solo play, or in perfectly ideal damage phases like Oryx that has adds to proc font off of and an easy crit to hit, then I think Cataclysmic is still one of the best options, but do keep in mind, switching to proc bait and switch really hurts the DPS output here. Overall, I kind of just wanted to give an unbiased opinion and also show some accurate testing in this video, but let me know your thoughts on which linear is the best in the comments below, and which ones you guys like using in endgame content versus easier content the most. I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we run low man, speedruns, and other challenges. A link to that along with my Discord server is in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.